Do you see anything now?" "Yes," said Boots, "now I see something that looks white, just like a tall, big birch trunk." "Yes," said the foal, "we're going into that trunk." So when they got to the trunk, the eldest foal took and pushed it on one side, and then they saw a door where it had stood, and inside the door was a little room, and in the room there was scarce anything but a little fireplace and one or two benches, but behind the door hung a great rusty sword and a little pitcher. "Can you brandish the sword?" said the foals. "Try." So Boots tried, but he couldn't. Then they made him take a pull at the pitcher, first once, then twice, and then thrice, and then he could wield it like anything. "Yes," said the foals, "now you may take the sword with you, and with it you must cut off all our 7 heads on your wedding day, and then we'll be princes again as we were before. For we are brothers of that princess whom you are to have when you can tell the king what we eat and drink. But an ugly Troll has thrown this shape over us. Now mind, when you have hewn off our heads, to take care to lay each head at the tail of the trunk which it belonged to before, and then the spell will have no more power over us." Yes, Boots promised all that, and then on they went, and when they had travelled a long, long way, the foal asked, "Do you see anything?" "No," said Boots. So they travelled a good bit still. "And now?" said the foal. "No, I see nothing," said Boots. So they travelled many, many miles again, over hill and dale. "Now then," said the foal, "do you see anything now?" "Yes," said Boots, "now I see something like a blue stripe, far, far away." "Yes," said the foal, "that's a river we've got to cross." Over the river was a long, grand bridge, and when they had got over to the other side, they travelled on a long, long way. At last the foal asked again if Boots didn't see anything. Yes, this time he saw something that looked black, far, far away, just as though it were a church steeple. "Yes," said the foal, "that's where we are going to turn in." So when the foals got into the churchyard, they became men again, and looked like princes, with such fine clothes that it glistened from them. And so they went into the church, and took the bread and wine from the priest who stood at the altar. And Boots, he went in too, but when the priest had laid his hands on the princes, and given them the blessing, they went out of the church again, and Boots went out too, but he took with him a flask of wine and a wafer. And as soon as ever the 7 princes came out into the churchyard, they were turned into foals again, and so Boots got up on the back of the youngest, and so they all went back the same way they had come, only they went much, much faster. First they crossed the bridge, next they passed the trunk, and then they passed the old hag who sat at the cleft and span, and they went by her so fast that Boots couldn't hear what the old hag screeched after him, but he heard so much as to know she was in an awful rage. It was almost dark when they got back to the palace, and the king himself stood out on the steps and waited for them. "Have you watched well and true the whole day?" said he to Boots. "I've done my best," answered Boots. "Then you can tell me what my 7 foals eat and drink," said the king. Then Boots pulled out the flask of wine and the wafer, and showed them to the king. "Here you see their meat, and here you see their drink," said he. "Yes," said the king, "you have watched true and well, and you shall have the princess and half the kingdom." So they made ready the wedding feast, and the king said it should be such a grand one, it should be the talk far and near. But when they sat down to the bridal feast, the bridegroom got up and went down to the stable, for he said he had forgotten something and must go fetch it. And when he got down there, he did as the foals had said, and hewed their heads off, all 7, the eldest first, and the others after him, and at the same time he took care to lay each head at the tail of the foal to which it belonged, and as he did this, lo! they all became princes again. So when he went into the bridal hall with the 7 princes, the king was so glad he kissed Boots and patted him on the back, and his bride was still more glad of him than she had been before. "Half the kingdom you have got already," said the king, "and the other half you shall have after my death. For my sons can easily get themselves lands and wealth, now they are princes again." And so, like enough, there was mirth and fun at that wedding. I was there too, but there was no one to care for poor me, and so I got nothing but a bit of bread and butter, and I laid it down on the stove, and the bread was burnt, and the butter ran, and so I didn't get even the smallest crumb. Wasn't that a great shame? End of section 50.